Hello everyone, so I wanted to record a short video kind of describing my experience with Linux so far, because if you aren't aware, since I, got here and I'm, on holiday, this is not my usual setup, this is my portable setup, I have been running my laptop, which I installed Linux on, and the Linux distro that I chose is Debian. So basically, I'm going to kind of guide you through my experience and give you some reasons why you may want to choose it, may want to switch from Windows, and some reasons why you might definitely not want to switch from Windows. Also, I'm very sorry for being unshaved and a little bit dusty. I promise it'll get fixed when I come back. But yeah, the first thing I wanted to talk about is compatibility with games, because I know, I'm someone that plays a lot of games, and I'm not going to lie, game compatibility on Linux is probably not as bad as you think. Obviously, games that you download off the internet might not run too well because you'd have to use, Wine, which is like this really slow compatibility layer. Well, slow in most cases. But if you have Steam, I'm actually lagging a little bit because I'm launching up Steam. You get Proton, and Proton is something very cool. Basically, it lets you run Windows games through it. So for example, I have been playing Fallout, and specifically Fallout 3, through Proton on Linux, and it's actually been running really, really well. So well that at first I thought it was just a native Linux game before I realized that it was actually running through a compatibility layer. Really, really cool. And you can actually do that with a lot of games. The way you check whether a game is, well compatible on Linux is by going to protondb.com and then searching up for that game. Downloading games off the internet, and some games aren't obviously going to run as well even with Proton, but it's nice to know that some games, have decent compatibility. The next thing I want to talk about is just like the desktop environment and the experience. This is kind of it. This is my OBS right here. Pretty much, you basically get the same options as you do on Windows. I chose to hide the, taskbar here. I think in Linux it's called, or in Debian it's called the Task Manager. Like, it's kind of confusing because Task Manager is the resource handler thing on Windows, but it's just the taskbar here on Linux. And here you do a lot of things through the console. And it's spelled with a K, so that's pretty, funky and cool. And the file explorer, I'll kind of show you what it looks like. It's called Dolphin. You kind of basically can do a lot of the same stuff. It's really similar. And by the way, this particular desktop environment that I'm using right now, the reason all of the windows looks like this is because I'm running KDE Plasma. The KDE Plasma desktop is different from other desktops. So if you don't know, you can install Debian with other desktop environments. This can look completely different. It's cool. It's good. You get all of this stuff here. You can open things in tabs just like you can in Windows. You can manage your files, and it's just good stuff. It's cool. I'm a big fan. I haven't found any issue with this file explorer thing, and the desktop environment is smooth. Like all of the settings that I want are here. That launched up Steam settings. I kind of wanted my system settings. So these are the settings. This is what it looks like. Everything's here. I haven't struggled with anything. One thing though, when I was using this laptop, I couldn't, by default, tap to click is disabled on your touchpad. I don't know why. It just was. So I kind of had to plug in my mouse and then enable it so I could use my touchpad. And I couldn't find a way to do it without the touchpad. Actually, no, I did figure it out eventually. I was able to use my keyboard to navigate, and then click enter, and then navigate everything with my keyboard. But it was a bit awkward. I'm not sure why it's not enabled by default. But yeah, that's the one quirk I found with the settings. Everything else is kind of just fine. And the final thing I wanted to talk about is some apps on Linux actually run through the command line. Some apps that you would expect to run with a desktop app, like a thing with an interface, actually run through the command line. And I'll give you an example. NordVPN, for example, runs entirely through the command line. Now, I don't want to show it, right? I don't want to show like what my results show, because that'll leak my IP that I'm using, and I don't know if it's sensible to do that. So, well, it's obviously not sensible to do that. But basically, you use NordVPN by typing in NordVPN C, right? Oh, and by the way, I know it says Janusz at penis. That's because I named my computer penis because I thought it was funny. Like my computer, when it shows up on like the like my network, it says penis. I don't know. I thought that was hilarious. But you just type in NordVPN C or NordVPN Connect. It does the same thing, and NordVPN status, and it just works. And obviously it has its own installation process, and that's kind of how you use a VPN. And some other apps just work like that as well, you know. So you kind of have to get used to using the command line a little bit. Also, you use the command line to install things. It's different on Debian compared to Arch-based systems. But for example, you would just type in sudo apt install and then just name a package, and then it'll find it probably, and then you can check to see if it's right, and then you can click. You can type Y to install it and N to not install it. And yeah, that's kind of an overview of like the main 3 elements that I thought would be a struggle on Linux. I would definitely not recommend Linux for like really hardcore gamers that download new games all the time and want everything to be compatible. But if like you check the Proton website to see if all of your favorite games run on Linux, then you can definitely, and you only play those games, then you can definitely switch to Linux comfortably, and it wouldn't be too much of an issue. I think you also need to be a little bit more technologically legible, because using the command line to do things isn't exactly something that like a newbie is going to want to do or know how to do, or even want to think about knowing how to do it. I don't know if I used correct grammar there. What's good about Linux is that it's free and it's open source. And if you're picking a distro, I would definitely recommend Debian. Debian is one of those distros that are kind of it's one that a lot of other popular distros are based off of, and why wouldn't you just go with like the stock kind of environment, you know? So for example, Ubuntu, you might have heard of that, is based off of Debian. Linux Mint is based off of Ubuntu, which is based off of Debian, you know. And then obviously alongside Debian you've got like Red Hat, you've got Arch, but those are more advanced. Debian is good even for people like me who are only a little bit like literate when it comes to technology and using computers and stuff. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. It's a short video. This is just my experience of using Linux from my part, and these are just 3 things I wanted to talk about. Hopefully someone found this useful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. If you didn't, then you didn't, you know, like no big deal. But yeah, that's me. Goodbye.